Hello and welcome back. Today we are thinking about tourism in a glaciated area, specifically again looking at the Lake District. So there are three different kinds of tourism impacts in the Lake District, both positive and negative. They are social, environmental and economic impacts. This will be the same for any kind of impacts that you have on an environment or with tourism. So here are some of the positive and negative. As you can see, these have been split into social, environmental and economic. So some of the positive impacts. Money spent by tourism can help to conserve and improve the environment. Over 1,000 million spent by tourists to support hotels, restaurants, shops. There's also improvement in transport for tourists, which can also be useful for local people. However, some of the main tourist sites suffer from overcrowding. House prices have been pushed up so much that people have been pushed out of the Lake District that have been born there. And roads there are very narrow, winding, and often congestion is a major issue. So if you would like to note a few of these down, I will let you pause this video here and then we'll move on. So what do you think the most damaging problems are and why? So you will need to write down from the previous slide which you consider to be the worst problem up at the top. Then you need to put two in the middle that are not so far behind, and then what is the least of everyone's worries. So let's look in a little bit more detail at some of these impacts. Firstly, traffic congestion. As you can see from some of these pictures, this is what people who live and travel to the Lake District have to deal with every single summer. Traffic in the Lake District more than doubles in the summer months. Traffic congestion is a real problem, especially at weekends, which is made worse by the narrow, twisty lanes and steep hills. Most tourists state congestion on the roads spoils their visit. Next, we'll think about house prices. So how do house prices have an impact on the Lake District? Many houses in the Lake District now are second homes. So these are homes owned by people who live further away and in cities, who use it at weekends and during holidays, but they are empty for most of the year. There are many other properties that are holiday cottages that are rented to holidaymakers during the summer that also sit empty during the winter. 20% of houses in the Lake District are now second homes or holiday cottages. However, there are strict controls on house building in the Lake District to protect this scenery. The demand for second homes, holiday properties as well as demand from the locals, means prices are forced up due to competition. So it's actually really hard to buy a house in the Lake District now because it's so expensive. To give you an impact on house prices, so this is where we are in Liverpool. Looking at the current average value of a house is about 181,000. In the Lake District, it's almost £100,000 more, with there's less houses for sale, and they are worth about £100,000 more for a very similar price, for a very similar house even. What's the result? There is a falling population in the Lake District. The local people have been forced out due to higher house prices, and they cannot afford to compete to the wealthier people from the cities. There is also a change in population structure, so there are fewer young people and more retired people. The young people just can't afford the housing in the Lake District and therefore they move away. And there's changes in rural communities as well. In the village of Chapelstyle, half of the houses there are second homes. So how is tourism managed in the Lake District? Again, you are going to come across various different management strategies, so you need to write the title, how it works, and the advantages and disadvantages. So firstly, footpath maintenance. They put rock slabs in some places using the local stone to create these footpaths. It's called pitching. This is to help to reduce footpath erosion. It's meant to blend in with the surroundings and reduce the erosion of the plants and vegetation that is on either side of the path by keeping people to the path. However, it is difficult to get these slabs onto the mountain because they are often very heavy and sometimes they need helicopters and it takes a lot of physical labour to do it. The next one, to improve and subsidise public transport. What problem does this solve? Well, firstly, congestion. If more people are getting public transport, it means there's less people in their own cars and therefore the roads are less congested. It would also mean that there is better access for local people. However, the speed at which people can get from A to B will be slower, and various other factors. Buses might also not run enough to reduce car use. People might want to go to areas that the buses don't go to, and it can be very expensive because I imagine if they're subsidising travel, they need to charge a lot more because they need to make it worth it for the company, but also for the people. Restricted parking zones. This will mean that there are less cars parking in these areas, or they can't stay as long. Which will affect a lot of people going to these areas and staying in these areas longer. So if the local people, this will be a massive benefit, rather than people parking in their local town and staying there all day. Just means that they can't pop to the shops to go and get something to eat, especially in the summer. This would solve that problem. Could they just widen the roads and offer some park and ride schemes so you can park in one area, hop on a bus and get to somewhere else? This would help to reduce traffic on the roads. It would also reduce congestion because the roads are wider and so people can overtake things like tractors that are often slower moving and hold a lot of people up. But it would damage the environment, and a lot of these places are on quite steep hills with very little roads, and so it's just not possible. It's labour intensive, it'd be a lot of hard work, it would cost a lot of money, and often it isn't actually possible. What about raising awareness of conservation issues? So we've got the issues here of people going to the Lake District and having no education about the environments that they're walking through, contamination of the environment, walking off footpaths, being really loud so that scares the natural wildlife. And so offering these signs and education, awareness, offers people the chance to learn about the environment that they're going to and get a bit more of an idea of the impact that they might be having. Education is a really good way of reducing the negative impacts of things generally. What about speed limits on lakes? So if you were to hire a boat as a tourist, you are able to get a boat across the water for an hour or two, and often people will be there having a picnic on the boat, playing music, which increases noise pollution because it's on a lake, so the sound travels very far. There could also be pollution going into the lake because the boats are not electric, they are petrol powered, and so there is more pollution going into the lake there. So there's actual pollution in the lake, not just noise pollution from the noise. They could also be dropping litter into the lake. It might also disrupt the wildlife below, meaning that birds and fish can't swim and migrate and breed in the way that they used to because they've now got boats going through there. What about restricting traffic in these crowded areas? So in theory, this would be really good, but people visit the Lake District because of not just the big towns in the Lake District, but they like to go remote and get away from the busy city life. And so, yes, in theory, this would work, but whether people would follow it and restrict the traffic to these areas is very, very unlikely. It might mean that people then don't go to the Lake District and choose to travel elsewhere instead, which would also have a negative effect on this environment. And then what about just holding events in the off-peak season to attract more visitors in the winter rather than in the summer? So this would then mean that the local people are struggling the whole year round to get access to the things in their towns and local areas, where at the moment they have access in the winter and struggle to get access a little bit more in the summer. It would mean that people are still coming to the Lake District, so there'll be a lot more noise pollution going on, air pollution from all the cars travelling to the Lake District. But it would help to reduce the summer congestion that happens. And then bylaws about littering to discourage it. In theory, again, great, but in practice, if there's not many people around to see it and report it, it might not work very well. So how might this reduce the problem of tourism in the Lake District? Probably doesn't do too much. And then finally, stop people from outside the local area from buying second houses or banning second homes. In theory, this reduces the problem on house prices. However, if people are looking to move to the area, such as the young people, if the prices drop, it then means that they are forced out. And so this ageing population problem that's happening in the Lake District will continue, and we won't really see an end to it. So you should have a table that looks a little bit like this, with a lot more words down the middle than I have here. So you've got your various different management strategies, from pitching, subsidising public transport, restricted parking zones, road widening, park and ride schemes, awareness of conservation issues, speed limits, restricting traffic, holding events in off-peak instead, bylaws to discourage littering, and stopping people from the local area from buying houses, or not from the local area to buy houses. So please make sure this is filled in, and then we are going to do a couple of exam questions together, and then that will be it for our glaciated landscape series. So please can you pause this video and fill in these 3 words into this paragraph. And then finally, these are images showing the features produced by glaciation. So this is all the way back in lesson 2, our erosion and deposition lessons. So which of these letters correlate to each of these glacial features? Which is a corrie, which is a drumlin, which is a hanging valley, and which is a pyramidal peak? So when you have completed that, that is the end of this glacial series. I hope you have found it useful. Best of luck with your exams, and I will see you soon.